has taken the plane, and he's got all the wealth. He's the Lord of wealth, and he's got the plane. He is the first son of that tapasvi. He has inherited everything. What about Kaikasi? Now that her husband is no more, she has nothing. Realizing that she has become utterly poor, she looks at that small baby. Remember before she said, he is wonderful. Now she says, Ayo, that Kubera, he will be a man of great stature. But my wonderful baby, he will be insignificant. She begins to weep. Now at this point, we have to take a leap of faith, but the story tells us that that tiny little infant here feels his mother weeping and gets up and says to her, Mother, what is worrying you? What's the problem? She tells that they are destined to become poor and their life will be ruined because the half-brother has taken all the wealth. This small Ravana, we're told, he gets up and he says, wow, we don't need to do that. I will go, I will capture that half-brother Kubera, I will bind him and tie him and bring him and lay him at your feet. Is that enough for you? Would that make you feel happy, Mom? Huh? Ma, you feel relieved when you hear that? She says yes. That mother is seeing that her life and her place in society is going to be rescued by this son. Okay? That's part. And then the next thing we see is that Ravana is going to do tapas. Okay? His father was a great tapasvi. We shouldn't be surprised that then Ravana would want to do tapas. He goes to the forest to do tapas, and he picks a very difficult form of tapas. I would not recommend this form of tapas to you for fun and leisure. Don't do this. He sets 4 fires in front of him, and the sun as the 5th fire. And he is doing intense tapas, and lots of time is going by, and then he keeps thinking, when will Brahma come and give me my boons? When will he come? Brahma doesn't come. Then he thinks, okay, I have to do even more rigorous tapas. And we're told that he cuts off one head. You'll see this tonight in the performance. He cuts off one head and puts it in the fire. Where's Brahma? Brahma hasn't come. He cuts off the 2nd head. He cuts off the 3rd head. He cuts off the 4th head, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and the 9th head. Now at that moment, he is at a crossroad in his life. He says, Brahma hasn't come, I have only 1 more head. Now for us, 1 head is enough, right? But he had 10, and he's lost 9. He says, I'll go home. He gets ready to go home. He's given up. Then he turns around. He comes back, and he says, I'm going to cut off my last head. And if Brahma doesn't come now, that Brahma's name will be ruined forever. He will become infamous as the Brahma who caused the death of a Rakshasa after that Rakshasa had offered every one of his 10 heads. So he begins to cut off his 10th head. At that moment, Brahma, who knows what he was doing in heaven up to this point? Maybe he'd fallen asleep, maybe he's watching a new film, we don't know. But he suddenly realizes, oh my gosh, I have to come down and give 1 boon. He comes down and he says, you have done great tapas, I will give you a boon. What do you want? Now Ravana feels that he has earned not only the boon, but that Brahma was not doing his job properly. Like a person in a government office who doesn't show up on the day when you need a form signed. He's not doing his job properly. Where was Brahma? So when Brahma finally comes, Ravana says, right away, you give me back each of my heads. Brahma says, okay, I'll give you your heads back. Not bad, huh? He sacrificed his heads. He got them right back. Same day delivery, huh? So then he asked for many other things. He asked he not be killed by demon gods. You know all these things. And then when he gets every boon he can think of from Brahma, he says to Brahma, now you get out of here. Imagine saying that to Brahma. You get out of here? I am fine now. And he struts around on the stage. Now let's think about this story. This story has some very interesting elements. We'll talk about them and then we'll stop for discussion. First, Rama is not mentioned in this play. Ravana is not defined in relation to Rama. Ravana is defined in relation to his father, who is a tapasvi, and his mother, Kaikasi, who is thrilled with her son. Then his life is changed when he feels the weeping of his mother. You could say that this experience traumatized him. Traumatized him means it affected his well-being. He felt, my life will be ruined unless I can restore the fortunes of my family. So even at that small age, I don't know, how old was he then? 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? That Kuti Ravana?
As soon as the Rakshasa is born, then he grows up a little.
So, a very small child. Imagine a small child, smaller than Isa, who has to turn around the fortunes of the entire family. What a pressure on him. Even as a small child, he has to take on the burden of bringing happiness to his mother, of restoring the fortunes of his entire lineage. As a result of this trauma, there arises in him some great ambition, okay? Now, ambition in itself is neither good nor bad. It's neutral. But what you do with the ambition is what matters. If you have an ambition to write an excellent MA dissertation or thesis, good, that's good. But if your ambition is to be sure that you capture your brother, tie him up and lay him at someone's feet, that kind of ambition involves suffering of others as well. That ambition is what drives him to keep doing that tapas. And he keeps doing tapas and he keeps doing tapas until he finally gets his extraordinary powers. Now, if he got his extraordinary powers and then he did all good for his society and all, like our Vice Chancellor is doing, then we would be very pleased with Ravana. But that's not what happens. He conquers all the other kings. He takes all their wealth. He becomes a tyrant. And that part of the story suggests that his childhood suffering created some good ambition, which later went wild and made him not care about the well-being of the other people. Okay? So if you compare these two, Valmiki's text and the play that we see tonight, you find in one case a stock villain who is always being deceitful and terrible, and a person who is born in an unfortunate experience, who works really hard to overcome it, but who in the end of his life loses his perspective on what is right. So those two are different ways of looking at Ravana. Thank you.
Kudra
presented as a villain in Valmiki. Then we looked at the Tapasaltam and how he's presented in a different way. I want to talk a little bit about stock characters or stereotyped characters and characters who have a fully rounded set of qualities. There used to be a story that people told when I was young. It had 3 characters and it could be played by one person. It was a monodrama. There's one villain, he's a landlord, and he was wearing one mustache. The lady who lived in the house, the rental house, she lost her job and she couldn't pay the rent. And in the very end, some brother of hers came from far away and paid the rent when the landlord was about to kill her. So the story was like this. Now I'm the lady. Ayyo, I can't pay the rent. Then mustache. You must pay the rent. Then, please, save me. I can't pay the rent, but soon I'll pay the rent. The punishment for not paying the rent is death. Okay. Then, brother is coming on the horse. Then, I have the rent. I will pay the rent. Landlord. Okay, I will not kill that lady. So, that's the end of the story. One person. The mustache man is the landlord. The one with the high voice is the lady. And the one who comes on the horse is like this. Those 3 characters are stereotypes. The landlord has only one dimension. The lady has only one dimension. And the brother has only one dimension. But Ravana is not like that. Ravana is a collection of seemingly contradictory qualities. Let's think about this. Everybody says that Ravana does not behave properly. And yet, all the texts tell us that Ravana was a master of the Shastras. He knew all the Vedas. That means he's an extremely learned man. So he may not be a paragon of Dharma, but that's not all he is. He also is a highly educated, learned man. In fact, in South India, Ravana is known as a master of the Veena player. In fact, in some stories they say that when Ravana was trying to convince Sita to marry him, he used to bring out his Veena and serenade her when she was sitting under the Ashoka tree. So he is not some boorish person. He is musically very knowledgeable. He was a connoisseur of the arts. Then, some people say Ravana is a coward. Why is he a coward? Because he stooped so low that he abducted Sita through a trick. But think about how Ravana, during the battle in Lanka, by the end, his sons have been killed in battle.